Focusing next on Nunavut. In that territory, the 2-week lockdown is now over. In most parts of the territory, I should say. The only place where it remains in effect is Arviat, a community which reported the only new case yesterday for the previous day. So it remains a concern. Jackie McKay is with us from Iqaluit this morning. The lifting of the lockdown, how are people responding to it? What's happening as it lifts, Jackie?
Heather, for most people in Nunavut, things are going to start looking kind of how they were before they went into the lockdown. They're going to be heading back to work. They can start going to restaurants, bars, gyms. If you have kids in elementary school, they're going to be heading back to class. Older students, they'll be going back part-time. You can even have 15 people over to your house. For communities such as Rankin Inlet and Whale Cove that still have cases of the virus, things will lift just a little bit, so you could have 10 people over to your house. Students will be back in class just part-time, and people will be heading back to work there as long as they're physical distancing and wearing masks. So, but as you said, Arviat will still remain under lockdown, and that's just because they're not sure if there's still community transmission happening there.
So let's talk about that. I mean, Nunavut, we know, was the last COVID-free region of the country, and there was many people were very pleased about that. And then, of course, cases moved in and the lockdown imposed. Now, lifted, but there still are active cases. And what are public health officials saying about those?
Right, so most people, when we went into lockdown, were bracing for COVID to pop up in their community, but that mostly didn't happen. At the height of the outbreak, there was over 150 cases, but they remained in communities such as Rankin Inlet and Whale Cove, and they could be traced back to Arviat, where community transmission was happening. So most of the people getting sick in Whale Cove or Rankin Inlet were getting sick because they were living with people in the same house as the virus. And only one person needed to be hospitalized for COVID. If you got sick enough, you needed to be hospitalized, you had to be sent down south. And so that didn't really happen. And Nunavut's chief public health officer is attributing that to that over half the people who got sick are under the age of 40 years old. And that's just because there's a lot of young people living in Nunavut. Our mean age is just 25 years old. So even though things are lifting in time for the holidays, health officials are still warning that new cases of the virus could send us back into a lockdown.
Jackie, thank you very much. Appreciate hearing from you up there in Iqaluit. Jackie McKay live with us this morning.